Now we'll practice Ardha Uttanasana. So have your blocks in front of your feet, which are hip distance apart. Activate, energize the legs, thighs back, hands on hips, chest open, shoulders back. Lift from under the heart, and then exhale, bend your knees as you crease at the hips and bring your hands to the blocks. So don't let the spine round at all here. Don't tuck the pelvis or tuck the chin, but rather bend your knees and lift the buttocks, lift the sitting bones, and stretch the front ribs forward to open the chest and look up. Widen the collarbones, elongate the belly, elongate the front of the spine. Stretch through the elbows, straight arms here. And keep those knees bent if it helps you keep the buttocks lifting. Stay grounded in the inner feet as much as the outer feet. Pubic bone reaches back, inner thighs reach back. Slide the front of the rib cage forwards and breathe here. Pull the outer hips back, pull the upper inner thighs back, pull the rib cage forward. Deepen the thoracic spine into the body towards the chest. And then release the hands down to the floor as you bend the knees deeper and fold deeply, taking rib cage towards thighs. Releasing here. And then hands to hips, stretch the chest forward, shoulders back, and come up. Now we'll practice Uttanasana, and we'll use a strap here, so hold on to the strap behind your back with palms facing forward, and begin by bringing the heads of the humerus bones, or the very tops of your shoulders, back. Stand tall on two legs, and then bend your knees as you start to hinge at the hips to fold forward, taking the arms up and overhead. Stretch the arms towards the wrists. Pull your shoulder blades towards each other slightly and take the strap up and overhead. Let your head relax and release down. And with soft knees, think of the front of the rib cage releasing down towards the toenails, so the abdomen stays long. Breathe here as you release the rib cage down, as you release the spine and the head down. Stay active in the arms, reaching the extension of the arms towards the hands. Lift the backs of the legs. Exhale right on through the top of the head. Open and released in the back of the throat. And then lead with the arms reaching back to help you come on up. Spread wide through the collarbones. And release. Grab your two blocks and we'll practice a simple lunge. So stand at the front of your sticky mat and have one block to each side of your feet. And then stand tall right over the arches with energized legs and a long spine. And then bend down and place your hands onto the blocks and step your left foot back into a lunge. And step back far enough so that your right knee is directly over your right heel. Lift the back thigh a lot. And then pull the outer right knee back towards the hip socket. So there's a feeling of that outer right thigh gathering in towards the hip. Lift the back inner thigh up. Gather your outer hips towards each other and lengthen your spine forward. Lengthen the anterior spine. Gather the outer hips in again, especially that outer right hip pulling back and in towards the midline. Lift the back thigh even more. And then step your back foot forward. And step your right foot back now, coming into a lunge. Left knee directly over the left heel. And think of that outer left thigh pulling back from the outer knee back into the outer hip. And then gather that left outer hip in towards the midline. Lift the right thigh, lift the inner right thigh and press back through the back heel. Gather your hips again and lengthen through the front of the spine. Once again, pull that outer left thigh back towards the hip, pulling the left hip back and in towards the midline. And then step your back foot forward. Bring your hands to hips, stretch your chest forward to come up. Now we'll get ready for a deep low lunge with the back knee down. So place a blanket on your sticky mat as you see here, and that will be the padding for the knee that will drop down. And then stand at the front of your sticky mat with a block on either side of each foot. Stand tall in mountain pose. Stand tall in mountain pose with energized legs. And then bring your hands down to the blocks and step your left foot back. Gather the outer right hip back and in. Lift the back thigh up. Lengthen the spine from bottom to top. Long trunk here, long abdomen. And let your hips sink down to be the height of the front knee. And then let your hips sink even further down as you reach the left thigh further back, and then place the left knee down on the blanket and then untuck your back toes. So the front of the shin and the front of the foot and the back leg is resting down on the blanket and the sticky mat, and sink your hips forward and down. So the whole sacrum is relaxing and releasing forwards, and then lift your low belly so that you lift your trunk up and out of the pelvis. Bending deeply in the front knee, pull the outer right hip back. Pull the right femur back towards the hip socket. Pull the outer right hip back and also towards the midline. Gather your hips towards each other. Lift the low belly. Kick the back shin into the sticky mat. And then tuck your back toes under, lift your back thigh, and step your back foot forward. Then now step your right foot back, first coming into a simple lunge. Gather the left femur back towards the hip socket. Lift the back thigh. Let your hips come down to be the same height as the front knee. Gather your hips together and lengthen your spine. And then walk your right leg even further back. Extend that right thigh further back. Sink your hips down and then lower the back knee down onto the blanket. And rest the top of your back foot down onto the sticky mat. Kick the right shin down into the ground as you take your hips forward, letting the whole sacrum move forward. The tailbone moves into the body, and then lift your low belly and gather your outer left hip from the outer knee to the hip socket. So the outer left hip gathers back and in towards the midline. Squeeze your outer hips together, lift the deep low belly again, and lengthen through the anterior spine, kicking the right shin down. Bending deeply in the front knee. Smooth breathing here. And then tuck your back toes and lift your back thigh. And step your back foot forward. Bend your knees, relax and release your head down. And then take your hands to hips and stretch your chest forward to come on up. Now we'll practice a calf stretch in Uttanasana. So have 2 blocks ready. and start to roll up your blanket. So make a nice even blanket roll here, a tight roll. And place the blanket roll onto the sticky mat horizontally as you see here. And then with your feet hip distance apart, step the balls of the feet up onto the blanket roll. So the heels are grounded on the sticky mat and the balls of the feet and the toes are up, they're elevated. And then take your hands to your outer hips, shoulders back, long spine. And then bend your knees and crease at the hips to fold, taking your rib cage close to your thighs at first. And just rest in a forward bend here. Now, hands on blocks, folding deeply. And you can play with how much you bend your knees. So straighter legs will give you a different stretch than bent knees. And both are good. So play with that here. And take many breaths here to breathe into and stretch different fascial lines in the calves and the backs of the knees. Bending the knees a little more or a little less, and then breathing into whatever position you choose. And if your hands reach the floor, then you can place the blocks to the side. And come forward a little more onto your hands, taking the weight forward. That will deepen the stretch. Walking those hands or fingers a little bit further forward. Pull the inner heels down, grounding the center heels down. Steady breath here, breathing into the sensations that arise. Long spine here. And then hands to hips, shoulders back, reach your chest forward to come all the way up. And then step off the blanket. And now we'll practice Ardha Prasarita Padottanasana, and we'll do this with bent knees. So start in Tadasana and have your blocks ready. Take your hands to your hips with an open chest, lifted spine, and walk your feet out wide, heels wider than toes, legs energized and long, thigh bones back, lifted belly. Stretch your arms out to the sides. Active in the limbs here. Internally rotate the thighs and lift from underneath the heart. Ground through the inner feet and the outer feet. And then take your hands back to your hips, keeping the shoulders reaching back. And now start to bend your knees and fold at the hips. Bring your hands down to the blocks and don't round your back or tuck your pelvis here, but rather deepen the bend of the knees and lift the buttocks way up. Stretch the front ribs forward and let the thoracic spine deepen into the chest. So keep the knees bent here, which will allow you to find a true lift of the buttocks. Stretch the chest forward, extend through the arms. Elongate the anterior spine. Stay grounded in the inner feet. And then start to deeply fold down. You can keep your hands resting on blocks and move the blocks closer to your feet. Or if your hands reach the floor, you can rest your weight into your hands a little bit. Staying with knees bent. Lift the buttocks, roll the thighs in. Release and relax the head down. Release and relax the back ribs, side ribs, and front ribs down. Deep breath here. then hands to hips, bend the knees deeper, stretch the chest forward, shoulders back, and come all the way up, thigh bones back. Lifting the spine, and step your feet together. Now we'll practice Ardha Prasarita Padottanasana with a twist in the variation. So have your blocks ready on the highest height. Stand in Tadasana in mountain pose. Take your hands to your hips. Lift the spine from bottom to top and step your feet wide with the heels wider than toes. Internally rotate the thighs, ground the inner feet, pull the thigh bones back, shoulders back, and then stretch the arms out. Lift the side ribs and reach the right arm to the right and the left arm to the left. And then hands back to hips, and then crease and fold at the hips, bending the knees so that you can lift the buttocks, lift the backs of the legs, and lift the buttocks up. Bring your hands onto the blocks, and then lift the left hand up towards the ceiling so that you come into a twist. Keep the knees bent, the buttocks lifted, the front of the spine long. Have a back bend feeling in the upper back. And turn the belly and the rib cage. Lift the left arm and left shoulder up. And then exhale and come down. Rest your left hand on the block and lift your right arm up to come into a twist on the other side. Groins reaching back, buttocks lifting, front of the spine lengthening. Stretch the right arm up, stretch the right shoulder up, and turn the belly, turn the rib cage. And then exhale and come down. And then hands to hips and stretch your chest forward and come on up. And now bring your sticky mat to the wall for a variation of Parshvottanasana. And step your left foot forward and right foot back. Hips are square. Feet are hips distance apart. And then lift your arms and lengthen your waist up through the arms, through the fingertips. So there's a big lift of the low belly and a lift of the rib cage up. Continue to square your hips. The back foot is at a 45-degree angle. Lift up through the musculature of the legs and then hinge forward at the hips to bring your fingertips to the wall. And walk your fingertips up the wall to get longer. Pull your hips back. Engage the musculature of the legs so that the muscles of the legs lift up from ankles to knees to hips. Think of the outer left hip pulling back and think of squeezing the outer hips towards each other. And let your head release down. And then push your fingertips off the wall to come all the way up to center. Exhale your arms out to the sides and down. Hands to hips. And then come to the other side, taking the right foot forward and left foot back. Back foot is at a 45-degree angle. Hips are square. Musculature of the legs are engaged. And lift the arms all the way up, lengthening the waist up. Lift the rib cage three-dimensionally up off of the abdomen, off of the lower back. Extended arms, open hands. Draw the muscles of the legs up from ankles to knees to hips. And then hinge at the hips to take the fingertips to the wall and walk those fingertips up the wall as you pull your pelvis back. Extended arms and legs here, long in the trunk, long spine. Let your head release down and think of pinning your outer hips, gathering them in towards the midline. Pull that outer right hip back even more. Stay very active in your legs here. And then push off the wall to come back to center, lengthening the arms. And exhale, release the arms out to the sides and down. Hands to hips and step your feet together. And now we'll practice downward facing dog with a chair. So have your sticky mat against the wall and place the back of the chair at the wall. And rest your hands down on the seat of the chair and step your feet back into a down dog position. So we don't want the back to be rounded at all or the pelvis to be tucked. Rather, bend your knees and lift your buttocks way up high so that your pelvis will tilt on the femurs. So the buttocks is lifting. And let the front of your spine be very long. Stretch through the arms, stretch the elbows, the armpits, pull the outer hips back, pull the inner thighs back, pull the pubic bone back and up behind you. And let the head release down and let the chest release towards the toes. Think of the upper spine, the thoracic spine, deepening into the body towards the chest. And then lengthen the trunk. Lengthen the outsides of the trunk and lengthen the inner trunk. Lift the buttocks up. You can keep your knees bent here. That might help you lift the buttocks and pull it way back. And then lean into the chair as you step your feet forward. Now grab your blocks for down dog with blocks against the wall. So set up your blocks to be shoulder distance apart and place your hands on the blocks with the heels of the hands just coming over the edge. And then come up into a down dog position, lift the heels, bend the knees, and lift the buttocks way up and back. Pull the pelvis up and back away from the push of the hands. Pull the outer thighs back, pull the center thighs back, pull the inner thighs back. Pull the sacrum up and back. Think of even lifting the rib cage away from the blocks. So the rib cage chases after the pelvis, which is lifting up and back. And let your head release down into that space. Lengthen through the armpits, lengthen through the elbows. Keep the forearms lifting away from the floor. Pull the thighs back again. Head relaxes and releases. Hug your upper arms towards each other. Press the thumb mounds down into the blocks. Nice long spread out fingers. Breathing here. And then bend your knees and come on down and sit on your shins to recover. And now we'll practice Parshvakonasana using the wall. So set up your sticky mat against the wall and have a block nearby. And then step your feet wide with your outer left foot at the wall. Heels wider than toes. Hands on hips, shoulders back. Lifted and long in the spine. Shoulder blades hugging into the rib cage. And then turn the whole right leg out. So the foot turns out. And the whole thigh rotates so that the front of your right leg points towards the right. And then bend your right knee so the knee is tracking directly over the midline of the foot. Grab your block and rest your hand on the block on the inside of your right foot. Press your right upper arm into the right inner knee. And then lift the left arm up towards the ceiling. And think of the shoulder blades hugging deeper into the rib cage. Let the thoracic spine move deep into the body towards the chest. And then swing your left arm all the way across and gaze at your top hand. Press the outer left foot into the wall. Become very extended in that back leg. Left thigh bone pulls back. And then lengthen that left leg all the way through the left side of the trunk, all the way through the left arm. And firm the right butt cheek forward. So the buttocks is not at all back behind you, but firm the right buttock forward towards the groin. And then inhale, come all the way up to center, hands on hips. Move the block over to the side. Turn your feet so that they're parallel. And step your feet together. And get ready for the other side now, stepping your feet wide so the outer right foot comes to the wall. Engage your legs, lengthen your legs. Hands on hips. Let the shoulders hug the back of the shoulder sockets. Let the thoracic spine move deeper into the body towards the chest, elbows back, long waist, abdomen lengthening. And then turn the whole left leg out so that left thigh is even turning out. So the thigh bone is turning in the socket. And then bend the left knee so the knee is tracking directly over the midline of the foot. Pull the left butt cheek forward towards the left groin so the buttock is not at all sinking back behind you. And then ground the right thigh back. Let the outer right foot press into the wall. And it's okay if that right hip comes forward. The right hip does not have to be perfectly flat. In fact, it shouldn't be. So that right hip can come forward a little bit of internal rotation in that right thigh, which will help the left butt cheek drop down and come under you. And then lift the right arm up, stretch the right arm to the ceiling, spread the wingspan, and then deepen the thoracic spine towards the chest as you swing your right arm across and gaze at the top hand. Be very long in the whole right side of your body, so stretch from the right heel to the right fingertips, getting longer there, deepening the bend in the left knee. Left knee is staying open as the left upper arm presses back against it. Left buttock dropping down and coming under you. Right thigh grounding back. And then inhale and come all the way up. Hands to hips. Feet parallel. And step your feet together. And then release your arms and recover with an open chest. And come to the wall now for a prasarita dog with wall support. So set up your sticky mat so the long part of the mat is against the wall. And step your feet wide, heels wider than toes. Hands on hips to start, and then stretch your arms wide and stand a few inches away from the wall so there's room for your buttocks back there. Hands on hips, and then bend your knees and start to hinge forward at the hips and take your hands to the blocks. Now bend your knees a lot and lift your buttocks way up high and slide your buttocks up the wall. So make sure your feet are not too close to the wall. If you need to, you can walk your feet forward slightly. And then with hands on blocks, start to slide the blocks forwards so your trunk comes into a down dog position. Let your chest release down towards the wall that you're looking at. And let the arms stretch and let the blocks slide forward. And let the buttocks lift up the wall. And let the thoracic spine deepen into the body towards the chest. Let the front of your trunk be very long here. Breathe smoothly here. Breathe into the sensations and the stretches. And then slide the blocks back as you stretch the rib cage forward. Walk your feet in slightly. Bend your knees, hands to hips. Shoulders back, chest open as you come all the way up to stand. And step your feet together. Now we'll practice Upavishta Konasana and have 2 blocks and 2 blankets with you here. Stack up your folded blankets as you see here, so you will be sitting on the corner of the blankets. And have 1 block in front of you and 1 block behind you, like you see here. And then sit on the corner of the blankets and stretch your legs out to the sides. And now use your hands on the blankets to lift yourself up and get your buttocks more behind you. So this is important. Pull the flesh of the buttocks back so that you feel like you're sitting more on the front half of the sitting bones. So you don't want your pelvis tucked under you at all. So the buttocks is pulled back. And then hands on the blankets, fingertips pressed down, shoulders back, lengthen the trunk, lengthen the rib cage, lengthen the spine, lift the spine from bottom to top and balance your head right over your pelvic floor and start to straighten the legs, extending the legs even more, grounding the thighs down. So the inner thighs are descending. The feet are active. And now start to twist to the left, taking the right hand onto the block in front of you and the left hand onto the block behind you, keeping the legs firm, the inner thighs grounded, the tops of your thigh bones grounded, the low belly lifting. Twist the belly, the rib cage, the shoulders. Inhale to lengthen and exhale to deepen the twist. Press down into the front half of the sitting bones. Twisting all the way to the other side, left hand on the block in front of you, right hand on the block behind you, and turning. Grounded in the tops of the thighs, lifted in the low belly. Turn the belly to the right, turn the rib cage to the right. Turn the right ribs back, left ribs forward. And then release and come back to center. Once again, press your fingertips down to lift the trunk again, staying grounded in the legs. Breathing here. And then bend your knees to come out of the pose. Now we'll practice Supta Padangusthasana. So lay down on your back and have a strap nearby. And release the flesh of the buttocks away from the lower back. Thighs are parallel. Inner thighs and groins are relaxed. Pelvis is heavy and relaxed. And stretch your arms overhead along the floor to lengthen the trunk. Lengthen through the waist, the armpits, the abdomen. Lengthen the front of your spine and stretch and extend your elbows. Open the hands and the feet. And then take your strap and place the strap over the right heel. And then start to stretch the left leg along the floor. Internally rotate the left thigh. Lengthen the spine headwards. Let the abdomen be relaxed and long. Elbows wide, shoulder blades sliding down the back. Kick your right heel up to open up the back of the right leg. Internally rotate at the very top of the left thigh and pull the right outer hip away from the right waist. So you can keep your right knee bent a little bit, that's fine. Just kick your right heel up so that you're feeling an elongation of the back of the right leg. Imagine the back of the right knee spreading and opening and lengthening. Breathe into the sensations here. Here you can imprint a long spine and an open chest even while you're stretching your hamstrings. And then bend your right knee, bend your left knee, both feet flat, stretch your arms overhead, neutralize and lengthen the trunk. Relaxed in the pelvis area. And then lasso the strap over your left heel and kick your left heel up towards the ceiling. Pull your left outer hip away from the left waist. And internally rotate the right thigh as you start to stretch your right leg long. Ground the right thigh bone down. Be long in both sides of your belly. Elbows wide, shoulders moving down towards the sticky mat. Kick the left heel up to spread open the back of the left knee. So the knee can stay bent, but energetically lengthen the left leg. Rolling the right thigh in, pulling the left outer hip away from the left waist, organizing the tissue and the bones and the muscles here as you stretch, creating order and length. And then bend both knees, feet flat. Reach your arms up overhead. Parallel legs, relaxed in the groins. Now we'll practice Supta Padangustasana 2. So have a blanket and a strap with you. Lay down on your back. Knees bent and feet flat, neutral pelvis. And stretch your arms up overhead along the floor and lengthen out your trunk as you breathe. And then make sure that your folded blanket is to your right. And lasso the right heel with your strap. Stretch your right leg up to the ceiling and then stretch your left leg long. And just start to extend fully the backs of the knees if you can. And now bring the blanket close to the outer right hip and hold on to the strap with your right hand only. Spread the left arm to the left and start to open up your right leg out to the right. So the blanket is supporting you underneath the outer right thigh. Keep the left leg extending. And think of the low belly spreading to the left to balance out the right leg going to the right. Long in the abdomen. And start to notice the way that that right thigh is rotating in the hip socket. If you rotate it in slightly, you might get a very different stretch in your inner thigh. If you keep your leg at around the height of the hip, it will be different than if you pull the right leg up towards the armpit. So breathe here as you explore stretching different parts of the inner thigh. Stay grounded in that left thigh. And then inhale and come up to center. And we'll switch sides. So place your blanket on the other side, so it's to the left of you. And lasso the left heel with the strap. Extend the left leg up first. And then extend the right leg. Internally rotating in that right leg. Outer left hip pulling away from the left waist. Backs of the knees opening. Long in the spine, shoulder blades sliding down the back. And then pull the blanket towards the outer left hip, very close. And grab onto the strap close to your foot with your left hand only. Spread the right arm to the right, spread the low belly to the right as the leg opens out to the left. And experiment here with rotating the leg so that you can turn in slightly. A little bit of internal rotation in the hip socket or a little bit of external rotation in the hip socket will give you a different stretch. It might stretch different parts of the inner thigh. Grounded in that right thigh, even in the waist. Right and left waists are long, long abdomen. And then bring the left leg all the way up to center. And release, bending the knees, feet flat. Now we'll practice a lovely, simple version of Supta Baddha Konasana without any props. So lay down on your back and adjust the flesh of your buttocks so it moves away from the lower back. And then bring the soles of the feet together and the knees open. And we'll do this with no support so that gravity is your prop here. Gravity is what's helping you and informing you in this pose. And see if you can just surrender your legs to gravity. And let your shoulder blades slide down your back and then stretch your arms out in a Shavasana position so that you can relax here. Let your trunk and spine be long. See if you can breathe here with your whole body. Relaxing the pelvis and the buttocks, relaxing the groins, Feel where your body is making contact with the floor, contact with the sticky mat. And then start to lift your knees up. You can use your hands to help you if that feels right. Feet flat. And then roll over to your side to come on up. Now we'll practice legs up the wall pose. So place your sticky mat against the wall and then sit down so that one side of your body is very close to the wall, and then swing your back onto the floor and your legs up the wall. And scoochie yourself in very close to the wall so that you feel the backs of your legs and your buttocks resting on the wall. Stretch the legs up, stretch the inner feet up, and extend your arms onto the sticky mat up overhead. Long arms and long legs, long trunk. Soft, long belly settling down towards the anterior spine. Toes are open. And stay active here, lengthening the limbs, keeping the chest open, grounding the inner thighs and the tops of your thighs towards the wall. And then adjust your arm position. Take your arms by your sides and let your shoulder blades slide down your back and come into a more restful pose now. Stay present and deepen your breath. And now bend your knees and roll onto one side.